السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
We stopped the last time when Nafisa noticed that Lady Khadija was very busy thinking about Prophet Muhammad, and Nafisa could easily sense her friend's deep and beautiful feelings, so she said, "Khadija, would you like me to speak to him on your behalf?" Khadija replied, "About what?" She said, "About marriage." Khadija asked, "To whom?" She replied, "To you." Khadija said, "Yes, speak to him." So Nafisa went to the Prophet Muhammad and said, "Muhammad, what prevents you from getting married?" He replied, "I do not have the means to marry." She said, "If you are offered beauty, wealth, nobility, and compatibility, wouldn't you accept?" He asked, "Who is she?" She said, "Khadija." He said, "How could that happen?" She replied, "Leave it to me." He said, "Then I agree." Nafisa returned quickly, full of joy, saying, "Good news, Khadija. Muhammad has agreed." Khadija became so happy that she cried. Nafisa then went back to the Prophet and said happily, "Khadija has accepted, she has accepted." The Prophet was extremely happy, and the marriage took place. He loved her deeply, may Allah be pleased with her. Even after her passing, whenever he mentioned her, he would say, "I was blessed with her love." We will now mention some beautiful moments that show the love between Khadija and Prophet Muhammad. Once, after Khadija had passed away and the Prophet had married Aisha, someone knocked on the door. The Prophet said, "It sounds like Khadija's way of knocking." Then he said, "Allah, make it Hala, Khadija's sister." When the door opened, it was indeed Hala, Khadija's sister. The Prophet welcomed her warmly, seated her, and spoke with her for a long time. And on the day of the conquest of Mecca, 15 years after Khadija's death, the Prophet entered Mecca victorious with 10,000 soldiers. Yet he stood at Khadija's grave and wept. When the tribes came to pledge allegiance, an elderly woman came leaning on a stick. The Prophet became very happy when he saw her. He removed his cloak, spread it on the ground, and invited her to sit on it. He spoke with her for a long time. When she left, Aisha asked, "Messenger of Allah, who was that woman?" He said, "She used to visit us during Khadija's time." Aisha asked, "What were you talking about?" He replied, "We were remembering the old days, the days of Khadija." On another occasion, after slaughtering a sheep, the Prophet took a piece of meat, wrapped it, and said, "Send this to Khadija's friends." Aisha later said, "I swear of Allah, he never stopped remembering Khadija every day." She once became upset and said, "Was Khadija the only woman? Allah has given you better than her." The Prophet became very angry, his blessed face turning red, and he said, "I swear of Allah, he has not given me anyone better than her. No, I swear of Allah, there is no one like Khadija. She believed in me when people rejected me, supported me when people abandoned me, and comforted me when people deprived me. Is there anyone like Khadija?" Aisha later said, "After that, I never mentioned her badly again." The Prophet was 25 years old when he married Khadija, who was 40. She passed away when he was 50, meaning they spent 25 years together. This alone is a strong response to those who claim the Prophet had many marriages for desire, because he spent his youth entirely devoted to Khadija alone. Khadija was the only wife the Prophet chose himself. The rest of his marriages had different reasons, and some were by divine command. We will explain each marriage later and its wisdom, to clarify the truth and respond to those who speak against the Prophet. And so, Khadija lived with Prophet Muhammad in love, mercy, and peace, a love story unmatched in history, until a beautiful event happened. What was it? Send blessings upon the Prophet. Khadija's nephew was called Hakim ibn Hizam. He was a disbeliever at that time. Once, while walking in the market, he saw a young boy with a beautiful appearance being sold as a slave. This was before the revelation came to Prophet Muhammad. The boy's name was Zayd ibn Haritha. He was from a noble Arab family. When he was still a young child, he was kidnapped from his people and taken away, then sold in the slave market. Later, Hakim bought him and found him to be very beautiful, polite, and well-mannered. Because he deeply loved his Aunt Khadija, he decided to give her Zayd as a gift. Lady Khadija also grew very fond of him, and she gave him as a gift to Prophet Muhammad so he could serve and assist him. Zayd then developed a deep love for Prophet Muhammad, and a very strong bond grew between them, like a father and son, and also like close companions. Zayd lived with the Prophet for a long time. However, Zayd's family never stopped searching for him. They even announced a financial reward for whoever would find their son. Eventually, news reached them that Zayd was in Mecca, in the house of a man named Muhammad ibn Abdullah, known among his people as the truthful and trustworthy. So his father, Haritha, became very hopeful and quickly traveled with his brother to Mecca in order to reclaim his son. They brought a large amount of money to offer to Prophet Muhammad as ransom. When they arrived, they knocked on the door. The Prophet opened and said, "What do you want, my brother?" Haritha said, "Muhammad, I am Zayd's father. I have come from my land and brought all this wealth to redeem my son. By Allah, we have heard nothing about you except goodness, and that you are truthful and trustworthy. We believe you will not refuse us." The Prophet replied, "Haritha, shall I guide you to something better than this?" He said, "What is it, Muhammad?" The Prophet said, "We will call Zayd and let him choose. If he chooses you, he is yours without any payment. But if he chooses me, then I am not one who would give up the one who has chosen me." Haritha agreed. The Prophet called Zayd and asked, "Do you know these two?" Zayd said, "Yes, this is my father and this is my uncle." They embraced him and all cried intensely. Then the Prophet said, "Zayd, I will give you a choice. Your father has come to take you back with wealth. If you wish, you may go with him. If you choose to stay with me, then I will never abandon the one who chooses me." Zayd did not hesitate even for a moment and said, "I swear of Allah, I will never leave you as long as I live." Haritha was shocked and said, "Have you lost your mind, Zayd? Do you choose slavery over freedom? Do you choose captivity over your father and uncle?" Zayd replied, "My father, you do not know what I have seen with this man. You do not know who he is. There is no one better among people than him, and I will never leave him as long as I live." At that moment, before prophethood was even revealed, the Prophet was deeply moved. He took Zayd by the hand, went to the Kaaba, and loudly declared, "People of Quraysh, bear witness that Zayd is my son, he inherits from me and I inherit from him." Zayd became extremely happy and lived known as Zayd ibn Muhammad for a period of time. At that time, verses were revealed in the Holy Quran prohibiting adoption. As Allah say in the Quran,
ادعوهم لآبائهم هو أقسط عند الله فإن لم تعلموا آباءهم فإخوانكم في الدين ومواليكم وليس عليكم جناح فيما أخطأتم به ولكن ما تعمدت قلوبكم وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا.
And not only that, but Allah commanded the Prophet that Zayd should divorce his wife, and after her waiting period had ended, the Prophet Muhammad married her to confirm to Muslims throughout all ages that adoption, in the old sense, had come to an end. In Islam, it is forbidden for a father to marry the wife of his biological son, and this marriage was by the command of Allah Almighty. So Zayd's name returned to Zayd ibn Haritha. This caused him sadness at first, and he wept and withdrew from people. The Prophet also felt concerned for him, but Allah, the one who mends hearts, honored Zayd in a unique way. Zayd became the only companion mentioned explicitly by name in the Quran. As Allah say in the Quran,
وَإِذْ تَقُولُ لِلَّذِي أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْسِكْ عَلَيْكَ زَوْجَكَ وَاتَّقِ اللَّهَ وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ مَا اللَّهُ مُبْدِيهِ وَتَخْشَى النَّاسَ وَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَاهُ فلما قضى زيد منها وطرا زوجناكها لكي لا يكون على المؤمنين حرج في أزواج أدعيائهم إذا قضوا منهن وطرا وكان أمر الله مفعولا ما كان على النبي من حرج فيما فرض الله له سنة الله في الذين خلوا من قبل وكان أمر الله قدرا مقدورا.
His name will be recited by Muslims until the day of judgment. At that time, the Prophet was about 35 years old. Then a major event happened. The Kaaba began to weaken and needed rebuilding down to its original foundations. The Quraysh were afraid to demolish it, fearing a disaster like what happened to Abraha and the Year of the Elephant. They were confused, should they rebuild it or not? And in the middle of all that confusion, a man among them named Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira stood up and said, "People, do you want to demolish it for good or for evil?" They replied, "For good, by Allah." So he said, "If it is for good, then no punishment will come down upon you from the sky. I will begin striking it with the axe, and if no stones fall from the sky, then continue the work." And indeed, nothing happened. So they began rebuilding the Kaaba once again. Remember, Quraysh were still disbelievers and polytheists. They believed in a Lord in the heavens, but also worshipped several idols on earth. Because of that, it may surprise you to know that Quraysh insisted that all the money used for rebuilding the Kaaba had to be lawful money, not earned from adultery, alcohol trade, or slave trade. This showed how greatly they honored the sacred house. But how did they know what was lawful and unlawful before Islam? Because this is the natural disposition, fitra, that Allah created every human being upon. Allah the Almighty said, as Allah say in the Quran,
والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها.
Anyway, they gathered the lawful money, but unfortunately it was not enough to complete the entire construction of the Kaaba. So they built a short wall known as Hijr Ismail, the semicircular area you see beside the Kaaba today. That is why when people pray inside Hijr Ismail in the Haram, they are told it is as if they prayed inside the Kaaba itself, because it is actually part of the Kaaba that could not be completed during the rebuilding. Now only the black stone remained to be placed in the Kaaba, but there was a problem. What was it? The problem was that every tribe of Quraysh wanted its leader to carry the black stone with his own hands and gain that honor. Tribes like Banu Abd Manaf, Banu Hashim, Banu Adi, and Abd Shams all argued fiercely, and a civil war was about to break out. Then Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira suggested an idea and said, "People, will you kill one another? What if we let the first person who enters through this gate judge between us and place the stone?" They all agreed. A few moments later, the door opened, and who entered? It was Muhammad. They became overjoyed and shouted loudly, "We accept al-Sadiq al-Amin! We accept al-Sadiq al-Amin!" Meaning, the truthful and trustworthy one. Then they explained the problem to Muhammad and asked him to judge between them. Remember, all of this happened before prophethood. So Muhammad came up with a very wise solution. He asked them to bring a large cloth or cloak, place the black stone in the middle of it, and let each tribal leader hold one edge of the cloth. In this way, all the tribes shared the honor of carrying the black stone together. Then, when they reached the Kaaba, Muhammad personally lifted the black stone with his blessed hands and placed it in its position. Allah, send your peace and blessings upon our beloved Muhammad. At this point, Muhammad was now 38 years old. During those 38 years, Allah had been preparing him politically, socially, and morally. He had gone through hardships such as the death of his mother, his attachment to his grandfather, and then his grandfather's death as well. All these circumstances were part of Allah's preparation for him. Revelation would come 2 years later, when Muhammad reached the age of 40. During those final 2 years, Allah would prepare the Prophet spiritually, because revelation was not something easy. As Allah say in the Quran,
لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون.
And Allah also says,
إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا.
So what would happen during those 2 years? Strange, and to some extent frightening, things began to occur. The first thing was true dreams. He would see a dream at night, and then it would happen exactly the next morning. Can you imagine that happening every single day? The second thing was that all creatures would greet him. Whenever Muhammad walked through the roads of Mecca, and Mecca was mostly desert, he would suddenly hear, "Peace be upon you, Messenger of Allah." He would turn around and find no one. Then he would walk another path and hear, "Peace be upon you, Prophet of Allah." Again he would look around and find no one, which frightened him. After prophethood, he later said, "I swear of Allah, I know a stone in Mecca that used to greet me. I still know its place now. Allah, send prayers upon the leader of creation. Send blessings upon the Prophet." The third thing was that solitude became beloved to him. He no longer enjoyed sitting with people as much and preferred to be alone worshipping his Lord. He began going often to the cave of Hira, a very difficult mountain climb that took nearly 3 hours. There, he would sit inside a small cave from which he could see the Kaaba from above, reflecting deeply upon the creation of Allah, the heavens and the earth, the alternation of night and day, the sun, the moon, and the stars. He reflected upon what was happening to him, asking himself, "Why was I created? And what is required of me?" And sometimes he would stay in the cave for an entire month. And his beloved wife, Khadija bint Khuwaylid, would climb up to him every 4 days carrying food and water. Can you imagine the effort she went through? She was around 55 years old at that time. And not only that, she would also share those moments with him. She would sit beside him, place the food in front of him, and remain silent, because if he chose to go there alone, then surely he did not want to talk to anyone. So Khadija bint Khuwaylid respected that. She would leave him in peace, sit beside him reflecting upon Allah just as he did, make sure he was all right, then descend the mountain alone and return home. Then he said to me, "Read." I replied, "I cannot read." So he seized me again and embraced me tightly a second time, then said, "Read." I answered again, "I cannot read." Then he seized me a third time and embraced me so tightly that I thought it was death. Then he released me and said, "Read." So I asked, "What shall I read?" Then Jibril said, as Allah say in the Quran,
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم.
Then Jibril disappeared. What would you do now, Messenger of Allah? Muhammad hurried down the mountain in fear until he reached the house of Khadija bint Khuwaylid. He was trembling and sweating at the same time. And he said, "Cover me. Cover me." So Khadija bint Khuwaylid quickly wrapped him in a blanket and held him close until he calmed down. Then she said to him, "Tell me what happened." So Muhammad told her everything and said, "I feared for myself." Then Khadija bint Khuwaylid, the leader of the women of the worlds, replied, "No, I swear of Allah, Allah would never disgrace you." In other words, this cannot be something evil meant to harm you or a punishment from Allah. Then she began reminding him of all the good qualities he possessed in order to strengthen and reassure him. She said, "I swear of Allah, you maintain family ties, you help the weak, you provide for those who have nothing, you honor guests, and you support people in times of hardship. By Allah, Allah will never disgrace you." Then she said to him, "Muhammad, I do not know what this is, but come with me to my cousin Waraka ibn Nawfal." But why did she think specifically of Waraka ibn Nawfal? And when he heard what had happened to Muhammad, what would he say? This is where our episode ends on this day about the story of the Prophet Muhammad. May Allah bless him and grant him peace, and you have my best regards and peace from Allah upon you and his mercy and blessings.